I think Deadpool and Wolverine is being slightly overrated. Now, firstly, I just want to point out I absolutely adore this film, but there are certain people online claiming this to be one of the best MCU movies when I don't think that's true at all. And I'll get into why later on in the video, but I just want to preface something. We've come off the back of a very poor run of MCU films. There's only a few MCU films that I can really count on as being at least decently okay. James Gunn's Guardians 3 was really good, and that's probably the only great movie we've had since Avengers Endgame. Shang-Chi was pretty good. Everyone loved No Way Home, but apart from that, we haven't really had any standout movies. Multiverse of Madness was controversial. We had shows like She-Hulk and Moon Knight, which were poorly received, not to mention Miss Marvel as well. The likes of Echo never hit the ground running too. So I think as a community, we've been suffering from this idea that the MCU hasn't been good for a while. And I think the first thing that came along that stood out from the rest and was at least in any way better than everything else that's come over the last couple of years is going to seem like the greatest thing ever. And I think that's the role that Deadpool and Wolverine is currently playing in the Marvel fandom. Marvel hasn't been great, especially the multiverse saga. Everything involving the multiverse up until this point has had some sort of controversy surrounding it, like it hasn't been the greatest thing. You look to Ant-Man Quantumania, you look to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, even No Way Home has got its haters, but Deadpool and Wolverine came along and it is probably one of the best of the bunch, and everyone's jumping on it going, this is exactly what it needs to be, this is exactly what Marvel needs to be, this is one of the best Marvel things ever. Well, hold your horses. I don't think that's entirely true. Now, of course, you're entitled to your opinion. You can think this is one of the best Marvel movies ever made, but let's not jump the gun. There are a bunch of flaws that people are willing to look past in this movie that those same people have criticized other Marvel movies for having. And just because Deadpool and Wolverine is a movie about criticizing the meta, it doesn't mean that it's objectively immune to those same criticisms that it then also implements into the movie. Like, for example, Deadpool several times makes jokes about how the MCU has been in a little bit of a sour patch recently. He makes jokes on how some of the movies have been a little bit bland. He makes jokes in some scenes about how there's too much exposition. However, just because Deadpool is self-aware doesn't mean that those criticisms can't be applied to this film. And realistically, despite how entertaining this film was, and don't get me wrong, it was really, really entertaining. The cameos were great. The acting was amazing. The jokes were really funny. In fact, I thought they were funnier than Deadpool 1 and 2, and I thought they landed more than any other Marvel film has in the past, but I do not think that this film is immune to criticisms about its pacing, about its storytelling, and about the way that it handles itself as a film. And you could probably say, okay, well, you're not meant to perceive this film in that way. This film is meant to be a movie where you go in, kind of switch your brain off, be entertained. It's not meant to be an emotional roller coaster of dramatic storytelling, and I completely understand that, but there are a few issues with this movie that I feel like people are looking past just simply because it's Deadpool and it's Wolverine, and oh my god, it's really cool. I felt like the pacing was off in this movie, like it felt really choppy, and this is an issue that I feel like a lot of MCU movies have had recently. A lot of them really don't nail the pacing. It was action sequence for 5 minutes, and then a scene of Deadpool or Wolverine talking about their backstory or giving us some exposition to the character arcs. There's two major issues with this. Number one, that is just telling us and not showing. Like, at least give us some flashbacks, or at least give us some insight visually into their backstories or the story. And I know the film didn't really have time to do that, but I felt like it would have made it a little bit more cohesive, because then it gave us these really choppy moments of maybe just 5 or 10 minutes of the characters talking to each other, explaining the plot. When you kind of get into content creation, film, storytelling, script writing, this is literally the #1 rule. Show, don't tell. Even in high school English class, when you're doing your creative writing piece or an essay, you always get told, show, don't tell in your writing. That's always been a rule. And this film fails to do that on several occasions, and just because Deadpool calls this out and makes fun of it, does not make the film immune to the criticism. Also, another issue I have with the film is that Wolverine's character arc is literally just the same one from Logan, just completely watered down. One thing that I really noticed is that despite how good Hugh Jackman is in that role, and don't get me wrong, it's really cool to see Wolverine again, I am completely and utterly bewildered by the fact that they managed to put him back on the big screen. It's just that it kind of felt like they didn't know what to do with the character. His character arc in the movie was him going from a worthless drunk to actually becoming a superhero again. Because in the universe he was from, he was responsible for all of the X-Men's death. And then he learns what it means to be a superhero, what it means to be an X-Men. If that sounds familiar, that's exactly the same beat for beat arc that Logan went through in the 2017 movie. Except in Deadpool and Wolverine, it's watered down because they didn't have enough time to spend with the character to flesh it out even more. Anything interesting about this other Wolverine that came from another universe was simply null and void because the movie just simply did not have time to differentiate him from the Logan that we all knew in the 2017 film. The only character arc that I really did click with was Deadpool's himself, and arguably his was the most important. I really liked Deadpool's story, contrary to what some people will have you believe. I do think that Deadpool's story was good because it was informed by his first two movies. Everything and every decision he makes in this movie is from things that we've been shown in Deadpool 1 and 2. His relationship with Vanessa, the friendships that he has with all of his supporting cast from the first two Fox films. This was something that was played heavily on in this movie, and it was believable because we've been shown the relationship that Deadpool has with these characters. So I really liked Deadpool's story throughout this movie. It was also really cool how they played on the idea of him becoming an Avenger to try and impress Vanessa, and obviously that leads us into the actual film, him trying to win her over. And I really do like that, and I thought it was very heartfelt, and it was a very good story. Sticking on characters for one moment though, I really didn't like Cassandra Nova in this film. I thought she was very underutilized. Also, she suffers from a lot of the same problems that Wolverine suffers from as well. Other than the final battle of the film, the only other place that we see her during the movie is in the void. And you know exactly what I'm gonna say, but most of the time when we learn about her character, it's because she's telling us, not because we're seeing it. The fact that Charles Xavier was not in this movie did not help her character whatsoever. Also, what is this Charles Xavier like? Is he like the one from the Fox X-Men universe, or is he completely different? We have no idea because we've never seen him. She was a very weak villain, but then again, the film didn't have much time to spend with her because it was spent doing other things, like showing off previous Fox characters like Johnny Storm, Blade, or anyone else that showed up in this film, or it was spent with Wolverine and Deadpool just fighting each other. And that's completely fine because that's what they were going for. But then again, I will mention, that does not mean this movie is immune to that criticism. And thus, that does not mean it is one of the best MCU movies ever made. I do believe it is probably in the top half of every MCU movie. We've had some really big stinkers in phases 4 and 5, so it probably eclipses the top half, but I don't think it's anywhere near top 5. Might not even be top 10, I don't know. It doesn't get anywhere near Captain America Civil War, the likes of Infinity War, even Endgame, I don't think. But then again, it is a fun movie. It's a movie where you go into it, switch your brain off, and just enjoy yourself. It definitely is the funniest Marvel movie. I don't think I've ever had as much fun with this as I had with other Marvel movies, but that's just my general opinion on the whole film. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I want to hear all of your thoughts. Make sure to like the video, subscribe for more comic book videos. On the screen right now, you can see some more videos. If you enjoyed this one, then make sure to go and watch them. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care, and peace.